Then again, section 63. This is for assessment of unregistered person. So these are the people who have not registered. So assessment of the people who have not registered. So again, this starts with a clause notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in section 73 or 74. So before issuing notice under section 73, 74, you have to start the process under section 63, then go to section 73, 74. So where a taxable person fails to obtain registration, even though liable to do so. So he fails to take the registration, or the proper officer cancels the registration, but he is liable to pay tax. So in these two particular situations, an assessment can be done. The proper officer may proceed to assess the tax liability of the such taxable person to the best of his judgment for the relevant tax period. Issue an assessment order. Again, there is a 5 years period from the due date of filing annual return for section 63 also, provided that no such assessment order shall be passed without giving a person an opportunity of being heard. So before, in section 62, there was no provision for opportunity of being heard. Directly after GSTR 3A, ASMT 13 would have been issued. In this particular case, they are telling don't give and pass an order immediately, but give an opportunity of being heard. Proper officer shall issue a show cause notice in ASMT 14. So he will give a show cause notice in ASMT 14 containing the grounds on which he is passing an assessment. A taxable person has to file reply in 15 days. Now this has to be done through letter. Now the notice of ASMT 14 also will be in letter. Can anybody say why it will be in letter, why it will not be in electronic form? Why ASMT 14 will be only in letter format and even the reply will be in letter format? Why it will not be in electronic, in common portal? Anyone can answer? Can anyone answer? Jagan?
Since it is for unregistered person.
Exactly. Since it is unregistered, there is no registration. There is no provision available for him to upload the notice online. So it has to be given in letter format. And PO, after the reply is given, proper officer shall pass an order in ASMT 15. And again, DRC 07 will be loaded. Now, what are the key points of section 63? It's basically taxable person. So when we say taxable person is person who is registered or liable to be registered. So it's not necessary it should be registered, but who is liable to be registered. Now, what is the scope of best judgment? So if you see section 61, assessment is on the basis of information available with the PO. So the scrutiny assessment is whatever is available with the PO. Section 62 is basically that was for non-filers. So that is, the section says assessment on the basis of information available plus gathered by the PO. So whatever is information available, plus he has to get the other information of non-filers and then pass a best judgment. Whereas in this particular case for unregistered person, it is silent on the scope. So best judgment is very, very wider. He can take data from anywhere and do a best judgment. So the scope is much wider in this section. And now we come to the last of the assessment, that is the summary assessment. So basically summary assessment is where the proper officer feels the revenue is going to get affected, and without issuing any notice, immediately order is passed. So these are the cases where the proper officer feels that this person may run away, or there are chances if I delay, the money, the tax amount may not come. In such cases, a summary assessment is passed. So it is basically to protect the interest of revenue when the proper officer has evidence that a taxable person has incurred a liability to pay tax under the act, and proper officer has sufficient grounds to believe that delay in passing an assessment order may adversely affect the interest of revenue. So the proper officer may issue an assessment order imposing the tax liability on the person based on any evidence. So immediately assessment order without any notice, assessment order will be passed. So this is a very draconian section. So you have to be very, very careful. So if a person to whom the liability pertains is not ascertained, that is, you don't know to whom the notice has to be issued. So the person who is holding the goods, on him, the order will be passed. So there are some goods, we don't know who is owning the goods. So the person who is storing that goods or keeping that in custody, on him, the order will be passed. If later on, if this order is found to be erroneous, the proper officer may withdraw such order, and a normal process of show cause notice under section 73 or 74 will be followed. So again, under this summary assessment, there is no requirement to issue notice, straight away order. Assessment order under section 64 has to be completed without issue of notice. The assessing officer has to fulfill following conditions. So because this is a very serious section, without notice order is issued, so some safeguards are there. Evidence showing tax liability of a person should have come to his notice. So there has to be a clear evidence with him. Okay, there is a tax escapement. Evidence can be understood. So what is evidence? We have to get it from the Evidence Act. Before passing an order or before initiating action under this section, there should be a previous approval from the additional commissioner or joint commissioner. And the assessment should protect the interest of revenue. So if he feels the tax amount may get delayed or it may not come, and there is a revenue which is going to get affected, on that conditions only this assessment can be done, and proper officer should have sufficient grounds to believe that any delay in doing so may adversely affect the interest of revenue.